So, good to go? All right, great. Let's get started. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our session on the art of measuring the returns of AI. So, with me today is a great group of panelists, and I'm very happy that I've got the chance to meet you. Starting with Ash Ashwami. Ash is the founder and CEO of Kemet Trading. Uh, sorry, Ash Saxena. She's the founder and CEO of Women Leaders in Data and AI and a professor at Columbia University. Thanks for joining us. We also have Ash, so the mix-up Ash and Asha. Ash is the founder and CEO of Kemet Trading, where they're building the first true single access point for digital asset derivatives. Thanks for joining us, Ash. Also, Dr. Abdallah Kablan, founder of his newly launched AI VC, Delta Wealth and Senior. Thanks for joining us. And finally, Badr El-Madi, GM of Google Cloud, who's also responsible for growing Google Cloud and Google in general in the kingdom. Thank you for joining us. I'm Elias Saad, the moderator for today's session. I'm the senior partner at Roland Berger, and I look after the digital practice. So maybe we jump right into it, given some of the delays we've encountered. So we know that everybody's embarking on AI. It's the trend, it's the hype, rightfully so, for so many tech, societal, and financial benefits. Now, so far, everybody has been investing to ensure that they continue to have the competitive advantage and the moat to compete, whether it is in technology and the right talent and the right change management. However, it's yet to be seen how much of those financial returns will be realized by the companies, and more importantly, how actually should companies and organizations cluster the value derived from AI. So maybe on that point, we could start very quickly with Badr on that point, on how organizations should cluster the derived value from AI.
Thank you, Elias. So I think we should look at it in a very balanced view. I mean, definitely having a fast ROI is a topic. It's a topic at the top of the agenda of chairmen, of CEOs, trying to realize the value of any investment that they have. AI should be looked at as a medium to long-term investment, without neglecting the fact of having some sort of use cases where you can apply some sort of a fast return on investment. If we look at AI today, there are a lot of buzzwords that we hear about, like it enhance operation, provide data insight, things related to improving the top line and bottom line, all these factors. But there are some use cases even that CDOs and CIOs are trying now to implement to realize the value of ROI and make themselves champions even, and make themselves appealing in front of their chairmen. Things like applying AI on some repetitive work, providing data, insight using AI is something that will have definitely a faster implication, positive implication on the AI investment. Absolutely, enhancing the customer experience with AI use cases will give us the ability to realize the value of AI in faster manner. At Google, we've injected AI since the beginning. I mean, we all enjoy using the applications of Google every day. I mean, the search that we use, the maps, the emails. Like, I have a story that my boss gave me a comment a week back about the quality of my emails. That he was asking me, like, did you get any technical writing course? Told him no, of course, thanks to Gemini. Gemini now, I mean, there is a statistics that I read about. 20% of the emails today is being drafted using the smart reply. So I encourage everyone here to use that. In summary, I believe aligning the goals of the corporates with whatever we do will definitely ease up the language with our superiors to secure more investments for AI.
Thank you for that. And Dr. Abdullah, from your experience as well, you've touched on that topic, and it's something that you've been actually spending a lot of time throughout your career. So, same question for you from your perspective: how should organizations cluster the different value that AI generates?
Uh, Thank you for the question again. And first, I'm so happy, to be witnessing a moment in time where we're discussing AI clusters. I finished my PhD in AI in 2010. Back then, when you meet someone and say, I have a PhD in AI, it used to be the end of the conversation. Now we live at a time where AI is in the forefront, and we're discussing complex matters such as AI clusters, which is absolutely brilliant. Secondly, on a personal note, and something that I'm very proud of, is the fact that I'm the father of two beautiful little boys, Moody and Zaid. So I'd like to reintroduce myself as the co-founder of two little boys, Moody and Zaid. And I know for a fact that Moody and Zaid are 20 years from now will either have their best friend as a robot, or they'll be living in a post-apocalyptic world fighting the robots and trying to save the world from robots. And it can go either way given the advances in AI, unless we're wise enough. So when I'm not busy chasing my kids around and try to teach them about the potential future that they are going to live in, obviously I invest in tech companies or build tech companies that are trying to derive value that is generated through their intellectual property that is not necessarily financial. And for that, I'm trying to look at it from a different perspective, which I dubbed as artificial wisdom, which is I just wrote my book and launched it, Introduction to Artificial Wisdom, the next frontier of AI, because I believe that we have a 5-step ladder. Obviously, you start from data. If you process data, becomes information. Information becomes knowledge of the problem domain. Knowledge evolves into understanding, and understanding with good processing, intelligence evolves into wisdom. Not even all humans can achieve wisdom. In Arabic, we say يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء. Not even all humans can actually achieve wisdom. And most AI systems are stuck in being glorified knowledge bases that lack the fact, like the value of wisdom. And the reason why I'm saying this and using the kids analogy, we have to look at AI clusters like wisdom deposits. The same way when I'm bringing up like my children to the world, I do not expect immediate result when I'm trying to teach them value. It's like a long-term investment that I'm putting into them in order for them to be able to be contributing positively to society for their own well-being and for the well-being of everyone around them. So when we are looking at AI, we should not look at it as a one application within the organization or within the company that is implementing AI. We have to look at it from a multifaceted, almost multidimensional perspective, whereby some AI adoption or implementation will help with sustainability. Some implementations will be for the strategic growth of the company. Some will enhance decision making. Some will enhance operation. And collectively together, and this is the wise way of implementing AI that I am pushing for, will be able to generate value, because at the end of the day, like I said in the beginning, value is greater than money, and money is a byproduct of value creation. So if you look at it from this multidimensional perspective, organizations will end up generating value. And like my dear panelists here mentioned, it is a mid to long-term investment that we have to look at it as something that is not going to give us results now, but is going to yield very good results eventually in the future. So AI clusters should be looked at as wisdom deposits.
I really like the complementarity between what Bedr mentioned by first laying out the top line benefits, the bottom line, whether it is from a customer experience perspective or making his emails better, but actually also from a societal perspective, how your kids in the future will actually have robots improving their quality of lives. So now everyone eventually, from a business perspective, are interested in the bottom line, right? And this is where Professor Asha, I'm very interested in the methodology and the KPIs that you use in actually deriving this returns on those investments. And this is something you also practice a lot, and this is what you spend time on.
Absolutely. And I feel that technology, I've been in technology for now 30 years. And I've always seen that technology is really for the benefit of humans, for the professionals. And when AI came in, everybody's really excited about the hype AI brings to all of us. And so in the book, I wrote a book during the pandemic. And the reason I wrote the book was because I realized that there is a gap between technologists and the business user. When engineers are building technology, they get so excited about the technology, they forget sometimes to really think about why they're building technology and how it's going to benefit the businesses. So in the book, I talk about the power quadrant, and I say that it's important to understand when you're using AI, it's great to get excited about a technology like can make my emails better, make me a better writer, but really, truly, when we're building application, how it's going to help our organization. And I divide that into 4 categories. And I say, before you start, think about your business, where you are today, and where do you want to get to. Do you want to focus on being an optimizer, where you're trying to focus on cutting costs or being efficient? Or you want to think about being an innovator, and you're launching new products? Or you're an extender, you're really thinking about getting the market share? Or you're a multiplier, you're changing the business model? And a great example this morning, the Minister of Communication and IT gave, and I loved his talk this morning, if you guys were there. He spoke specifically about the examples, and he spoke about the sickle cell, and he spoke about drug development, which takes 3 to 5 years. Now with AI, it's only 18 months. That's the value. That's your optimizer, where you're creating efficiency in your processes. So when you're looking at AI, really think about the formula, the framework that you can use to make sure it's bringing value. Technology, just for the sake of building technology, does not bring value.
Thank you for that. And I guess one of the key takeaways would be what is it that you want to achieve? And then based on that, this is how you set the KPIs and how you set the methodology for measuring the returns.
Exactly.
Because it's not one size fits all, right? Because those who want to optimize are different than those who want to innovate. And this is what takes us back to Bader's point, which is in many cases it's a long-term investment and a long-term based on a long-term strategy. So patience is a virtue in that case.
And making sure that you're aligned to your business goals. You make sure that when you're building a technology, you're not building it for just because AI is new hype.
Fair enough, but people like Ash, who are actually providing technologies to facilitate liquidity and trading, would actually want to have a faster or a shorter term duration to look at things. So Ash, maybe we contrast this view with the much more immediate and liquid component of this business.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously in our case, right, like what we really, sorry, which side is it? Okay, there it is. We definitely care more about like immediate return, just given the velocity of the ecosystem that we sort of operate in, right? So at Kemet Trading, we provide infrastructure for institutional participants, think banks, family offices, hedge funds, in order to trade on top of what is considered the most nascent market today in the world, digital asset derivatives. So that means being able to trade Bitcoin options, perpetuals, futures. It's a very new market, but the design patterns around like how these trading systems tend to work still are more or less kind of the same. In our case, given how proprietary our technology is, it's definitely a challenge to kind of like lean on that innovation side versus like the immediate return. So one of the key sort of findings that we were able to unlock on day one when we started Kemet is sort of how can we incorporate AI in our development cycle without it being sort of exposed to proprietary knowledge around like algorithmic executions, for example. So one immediate use case was obviously taking down like the amount of time every engineer puts in around unit tests, sort of like quality assurance, backtesting strategies against like anonymized data. That used to be a process where an entire team have to like spend hours, days, and in some cases weeks in order to ensure the safety of some of these algos. Today, 100% of our company is, for example, leveraging a tool like Copilot to make sure that their unit tests are pretty much like automated, and that's happening contextually based on their behavior and sort of like their commits across our repositories. We're looking at similar use cases around like these immediate returns. Obviously, we might be the outlier just given that we're functioning in the financial services industry. But I think it's going to be a little bit until we get to the innovation side where an AI agent, for example, comes up with a completely different algo that brings us sort of an edge in the market versus generally being more of a multiplier on our productivity. That's definitely something that we've touched and currently are experiencing immense value out of.
And how have you seen that disrupting the financial sector and impacting the returns of the financial sector?
Absolutely.
Follow-up question.
I think that's a great question. I mean, for those of you who might be following maybe some of the crypto scene, like news over the past couple of weeks, for example, news came out from Coinbase where they have demonstrated that a couple AI agents were able to essentially trade value automatically using smart wallets. And I guess one key thing here to mention is like one of the core tenets behind blockchain and putting things on chain and putting value on chain was this incredible idea for programmable money. Now, or programmable value in general, right? When you think about smart contracts and how they tend to work and starting to put like real world assets on chain, the next iteration of this is sort of getting AI to interact with value. And this is something that we're incredibly excited about. So you could think about a world in 10 years, I wouldn't even say 10 years from today, in 5 years' time, where there are these AI agents that are going around essentially executing tasks, and they require exchanging value just like as humans would be able to do so, right? So if I'm asking you for a service, if I'm asking you for data, if I'm asking you for some form of good, I probably need to provide some value in return of that good. Until smart contracts becoming a reality, which they are today, essentially AI agents don't have access to our Web2 infrastructure, really. They don't have access to bank accounts. But with digital assets, with stable coins, with crypto, now these agents essentially are going to be fully empowered to act on your behalf, and the entire companies have to go out, not only interact with other humans, but also to interact with other AI systems out there. So it's an insane world that we're probably going to witness.
Enabled by smart contracts.
Absolutely,
which
right?
would be the facilitator.
So programmable money, with artificial intelligence. When you think about the marriage between those two, all of a sudden the exchange of value is sort of, increased by tenfold, right? Like they can go around and basically function as if Ilyas is going out there and buying something, but in reality they're much more efficient than you are, right?
With less friction.
Absolutely,
Less
right?
friction.
Yeah.
And would you say that it's mainly the regulations that is slowing this down? Because from technology, there's a convergence, especially with Web3 and AI, and a lot of the protocols are being built interchangeably. So
100%. I think, so the regulatory space, when you think about like Web3 and AI, they're also at different stages altogether, right? So I think also not only at different stages, but also across the global scale, you've got areas, for example, when you think about the UAE, right, like Saudi, other countries in the GCC that seem to be a lot more friendly with sort of where that world is heading. When you look at the US, I think we're definitely a little bit behind in terms of like the regulatory clarity around some of these industries. AI, for example, there's all this talk about safety and sort of like pushback from regulators. Same thing is still happening, for example, in crypto. But when you look at places like Singapore, right, I think eventually everything is sort of like gonna just come together, right? I think because that train has left the station, for quite some time now.
So we looked at clustering the value, both from pure business to also improving quality of life, the methods, the KPIs, depending on where you're going and what you want to achieve. Also from a different sectors, especially from the financial sector where the technology is actually supporting the rapid development of AI. When we look at some of the, I wouldn't say traditional, but some of the big incumbent businesses such as Google, you spoke about the strategic importance of everything you're doing with AI, the long-term goals. How are you seeing this being translated to the financial returns, and how are you measuring it? Because your investors, the markets are actually starting to monitor and see how much of the returns, whether it is in your TPUs and your existing products, from a Google perspective.
So that's really interesting. It's a topic that we run every day. Absolutely. The challenge that now executives have is how to quantify the way they measure actually the success of these projects. There are some, but I would say the common way of doing that, I've started to see actually building the problem statement around what actually this AI use case is resolving. And then definitely aligning with having a stakeholder management where people from business, people from technology side comes together in one table and set the right expectations about that investment, where it's going to be channeled. What are the expectations out of that? What are the expected outcome in terms of financial returns and in terms of whatever, even profit or even operation enhancement I'm sure that Ash, with the products that he does, he's not going to face this issue, although from what you describe, maybe you're not using Google technology, but that's another topic. So the thing is, we need actually to measure it first in technical. So things related to the technology that you just mentioned, whether from the infrastructure side, along with the models that we're building, we're talking about here the time of response, the time required for the training, for the inferencing, even applying some methodology to test whether it's a use case, whether it's a large language model or any AI use case, like measuring or calculating the errors or the F1, for example. This is something really essential to measure that technically. On a financial, definitely the revenue gains, what sort of impact on the top line, bottom line, this is something really, really important. One last aspect I wanna talk about here or double click on, we need to set the right expectations. And this is something needs to be revisited every time. A lot of business cases, when we write it in a very ambitious manner, where throughout the project, actually, we face some challenges. So we need to set some sort of a methodology where we can review this on a periodic manner and absolutely report that in the best way.
That would be very interesting to look at from a VC perspective. And this is where Abdullah comes in because, yes, many of the companies are investing, such as Google, whether in the infrastructure, from cloud to TPUs or GPUs, probably a bit more familiar for everyone. But also there are a lot of, and we've seen now the wave of investments or venture capital funding that's going into AI. So how are you balancing and how are you measuring this ROI and how are you actually approaching all of these investments?
It's a very good question because, as I said, it is the question of having the tangibles and the intangibles and coming up with the right formula to measure them. And as I said, there's the financial element, but again, in the VC world, especially when you're looking at startups and the pie in the sky, valuing them is always not an easy task because looking at the management accounts or the audited accounts, if they even exist, of a company at an early stage is quite difficult. Then you have to look at the IP or the intellectual property that this company is trying to disrupt. So personally, at Delta World Partners, we obviously, the layer one companies are untouchable. So no one's going to compete with, Gemini, Llama, Lambda, OpenAI. But layer two is where we see the opportunity, where there are all these companies that are, building architectures on top of these layer one infrastructures that are provided to them. But then the way we put our finger on the pulse and try to find the value and the potential ROI is we try to anticipate the growth, the sustainability of these kind of product or architectures, the resilience of the company, and if technology is going to change, is it going to affect this company? So does the company have strategic foresight and where the trend is going to go? Because obviously no one can predict the future, but if you have strategic foresight, you can at least anticipate where the trend is going. Plus the potential market opportunity, whether this is exitable, not necessarily to obviously an IPO route like all the startups are dreaming, but to another bigger company that would want to absorb you based on the value that you've created and generated. And as I said, it's not only financial, it is measured by the potential growth. One thing that I emphasize is the resilience, because I've I come from an entrepreneurial background, so as soon as I finished my academic life, I started building companies. I failed multiple times. I tested failure. I think I've learned quite a lot from it. I built companies and I did exit companies. And the truth is that finding value in a company that is able to adapt and change quite rapidly and quite quickly because it has the right infrastructure is very important. And one point, and I think Ash has touched on it, which is very important for us, is interdisciplinarity. Technologies are converging at a very rapid pace. Obviously, you have artificial intelligence, which is a broad term. There is obviously all the machine learning. There you can look at the genetic algorithms, neural networks for all the nerds out there, reinforcement learning, so many models, LLMs out there. However, obviously you have something like blockchain and artificial intelligence are starting to actually quickly converge. Obviously you have virtual reality side of things where some decentralized architectures are within VR environments. And not only this is a potential business opportunity, because if you will look at VR, for example, and you have a virtual world and you have some decentralized currency inside it, you're literally creating a new GDP, almost mirroring the real GDP of the world within a new economy, similar to what e-commerce has done in the internet. But also when it comes to sustainability and adaptability, if AI is actually a threat to humanity, then maybe a solution to rein the threat of AI is something like blockchain, because if you deploy AI clusters on decentralized architectures, then a rogue AI will not be able to achieve consensus in order for it to kind of take over the network completely. And it's almost similar to, you know, if AI is the train, then blockchain would be the rails that will guard it and guide it. And this is where the convergence that I'm talking about, and this is where, when we're spotting opportunity, we're looking at founders and companies that have built something resilient, something adaptable, and something that if the market changes completely, it will be able not only to survive, but to converge with other technologies.
This is a very elaborative way to look at the various variables look at when trying to identify the right opportunities to invest in and how to measure actually the returns. All of these are major feats and big projects. So I would like to end with you on what have you seen are some of the pitfalls when going about these projects and how to avoid them, some of the learnings, because it all comes down to the right execution for us to have the right financial returns.
100%. And I think it's so critical that as we are thinking about building AI, we don't forget about the data. And I think we spoke about the regulation, we spoke about the guardrail, but data and what kind of data you're collecting, is your data managed appropriately? Do you have security, privacy? What are the governance around the data? Data is the lifeline for AI. If you don't have the right set of data, your models won't work. So what I see a lot of times is either the teams in large organizations get so focused on data, they forget what the purpose is, or they're thinking about the purpose, but they don't have the right data or the guardrails or the privacy or the regulation around the data. So I have to say the biggest element when you're building your models is your data and how your data is organized, structured, who owns it, and really focusing on making sure that you have a whole data framework which works with building a high-level executive engagement, also governance, and then culture and literacy, and then comes the transformation. And transformation is all about creating the flywheel. And I talk about AI flywheel, where you want to make sure that these models are robust and are getting the right data set to make sure that they don't die down. So that's the biggest thing I would say, leaving everybody on the thought of data and making sure data is...
That's the foundation for everything to do on AI. Well, I would love to thank you all for this great contribution and great insights. Thank you for your time. And thanks for the audience for joining us today and for being with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.